Alright, so we found on our little walk here some really handy stuff that's going to go into the dump pouch. This is the inner layer of the bark on this dead tree. Most of it's pretty dry. That's the hard thing today. I mean, we've got snow cover everywhere, it's raining. It's hard to find good dry tinder. Most of this is pretty dry, some of it's holding some water. We'll get the driest stuff we can. This is a good fire starter. It's strong enough that we can make some cordage out of it if we needed to. But this is the type of thing that if it's there and available, you don't want to just walk by it. Grab it, get it in your pack. Right now, if some of it is too wet, it can always be dried by a fire to be used later on. So don't pass stuff like this up. Alright, I think we're going to kind of use this to our advantage. So this is another horn tree, but he horned one of these little pines. And in doing so, we've got tine marks all through here. He scraped this up a lot. Now, if you can, I don't know if you can see, it's brought out a lot of sap. A lot of resin in this has come out because it's basically trying to heal itself. So what we'll do is we'll kind of come in with a little tin or something and a knife, and we'll just kind of scrape this outside stuff off. And it's not really fat wood, but it still is nice and dry because it's impregnated with that resin. So it's not really fat wood, but it's still a good fire starter. So try to get you a little closer there. Maybe you can see all the resin that's in this. And Taylor's just coming in with that knife and kind of scraping things down a little bit, collecting as much of it as he can. And this is just the wildlife doing us a solid, basically. Alright, good find here, and one that I think a lot of people have questions about. Punkwood. That's really punky. So, a good thing to look for, this is old and dead standing, but more importantly, it's been worked a lot by woodpeckers. You can see all the places they've been up through there. That helps to really rot this stuff out. Check that out. Once you get in there, it's nice and dry. It'll just turn to dust. That's good punkwood. So to test how dry it is, you can just kind of rest your hand on there, and if it's not super cold, then it's dry. So we're going to gather quite a bit of this. The great stuff about this is it's just a good fire starter as is, but on top of that, if you char this, it works just like char cloth, and it'll take a spark super easy. And anytime you hear a reference to punkwood, this is what we're talking about. It's dry, rotten wood that you can just turn to dust in your hands. Alright, this is something we've been looking for. So this is a just old fallen pine tree, and this is where we can probably find some fat wood. Here we go. I hacked off that limb just to show you. So all the way around this limb, that's a big resin deposit. All the way around that. That's the kind of stuff we're looking for. So all these limbs that are on this, you can hack in. These areas are what you want, full of fat wood. This is probably the easiest way to find it, one of. If you can find just an old stump that's really close to the ground, that's usually loaded. But areas like this improves your odds of finding that fat wood. You just chop down in there and start working around here, and you'll find these seams. Sometimes you'll find better deposits than others. Sometimes it'll run all the way down through here. But these areas are what we're looking for. It's just a big old piece of resin-rich fat wood. So if you wanted to continue, you can see that cross-cut section now a little better. There's some right there too. But now all of that right there is fat wood. So all of this around here can be cut out to give you these good usable pieces. Alright guys, so our nice little clear area here, we just kind of set up a little temporary shelter. What we had in mind here more than anything, this isn't the setup we'd sleep under. We don't have a great strong canopy or anything, but it's just a quick little improv so that we can kind of sit down, take a break. This would be a place maybe we'd make some pine needle tea or something, but it's just a quick little setup. The biggest thing we were going for with this is when we get a fire going, we wanted something behind us to reflect the heat off. So that stupid thing whenever you're sitting around a fire and the front half of you is roasting and the back half of you is a popsicle, that's because you don't have anything behind you reflecting the heat back. So a simple setup like this, really easy to do. It's just a few tent pegs and a tarp, but the biggest thing is this fabric will really help reflect the heat back and we get a good solid heat. So this is the type of place that we would set up to, you know, maybe eat some food, get some snow melted for water or something. This is just a little spot to have some reprieve. So this is by no means our campsite. We're on a slope, and the main reason we picked this was because you can see we've got a lot of the snow is melted off on this side, so it gets us out of that snow. If we were going to ultimately stay out here, which we're not, we're just kind of out on a little day trip, we'd pick a better flat spot for our campsite. Make sure we've got plenty of trees so that we could put up a proper tarp setup. So this is pretty temporary. All right, so while we were out doing our thing, we were collecting a bunch of stuff. We're just kind of going through stuff now, see what all different goodies we got. We got some punk wood, some pretty good punk wood. Yeah, got that nice bark.
Got a lot of
punk wood because that was
half this pouch is.
That was one of the better resources that we found, was the punk wood. So we loaded up on that because we weren't finding much else. Because of the snow, grass and stuff like that is really slim pickings. So this is kind of a bare bones kind of day, which, you know, makes a little bit of a challenge getting a fire going, but we can do it. We found some stuff to do so. All right, we're starting to process things down a little bit. Got some of that, we picked the driest of that bark. Got a little bird's nest started there. This is the stuff that we scraped off that tree, the pine tree that that deer had horned. And then through the processing steps as well, I'm going to take this fat wood, just take my knife to it and cut out these really resin rich areas and add that to this little pile. So right now we're just kind of prepping. All right, so I whittled out as much of that easy to get to fat wood as I could. This today is pretty important, so we're kind of going to two-man this. All right guys, Taylor just stuck a piece of char cloth in our bundle there. Gonna hit that with the ferro rod, get it going. That's going. Now we're just going to work at blowing this guy into flame. Getting good smoke. This is the reality of these conditions, guys. We don't have super dry material. Got to do what you can do. So trying to get in here with some of that fat wood, getting it going. There we go. That's going to help immensely. There we go. Now we got some of that fat wood going. we want to just keep getting that going, because this is really what's going to feed that and give us a longer burning fuel. And now it's just kind of baby steps, getting some small, fairly dry stuff in there, as dry as we could find. We keep some of that fat wood on standby. We're just kind of sprinkling it on there. There we go. Now some of our smaller sticks are gone. So with that tinder, we just found something that was serviceable. Just kind of relatively dry bark. Just enough to be able to get that fat wood going. And that's pretty much the hardest part done. Now we've got enough stuff in there burning to making some embers. It's going to be a lot easier from here. Alright, the reality of this, guys, is knowing how to do this, find this kind of stuff, is just as important as being able to use primitive means of starting your fire. So we were able to find serviceable material to get this fire going. Now, we've talked about it before, having everything in your pack to be prepared. We've got lighters in our pack. So we were doing this with the char cloth and the ferro rod just kind of as practice to make it a little harder on ourselves, but we've got lighters in our pack. So biggest thing is, even with those lighters, you still want to find this kind of stuff to help improve your odds and to not use up your lighter.